very warm welcome. You're watching Right to Be Heard Town Hall Election Special Season 2. My guest today, senior Aam Aadmi Party leader, Professor Yogendra Yadav, one of India's top psephologists, now an ideologue for the Aam Aadmi Party. We've got lots of people who are raring to go at Yogendra Yadav and ask him questions about all that the Aam Aadmi Party government has done and has not been able to do over the last several weeks that they've been in power. We'll take the first question from that gentleman over there.
Yogendra, your party seems to be in a hurry, and when Arvind Kejriwal was asked that, he said, yes, we are in a hurry. Don't you think that this hurry, this sense of urgency bordering on panic, does not give space for reflection, introspection, for acknowledging mistakes, for listening to people, for taking people along?
You must understand that this is a government which came into power in a very unusual situation. It's a minority government in a state like Delhi where half the powers are with central government, and with a 2-month time frame, because the model code of conduct kicks in towards the end of this month. People in this country want to know what would an Aam Aadmi Party government or what would an Aam Aadmi government look like. So yes, there is some sense of urgency about it. Occasionally, I think we press that too much. I think we need to slow down occasionally. I do advise this to Arvind. I say, let's slow down a bit. But he's very energetic. He wants to do things. And for all these years, we have blamed governments for not doing anything. Let's not hurry in blaming a government for being too much in a hurry.
You've got a chief minister sitting on a mindless protest, and people are wondering, is this the government we voted into power, Yogendra Yadav?
Here is a chief minister who actually raises a question which needed to be raised for 20 years.
Let me counter that by saying that he asked for those officials to be suspended, to be dismissed. They were sent on leave and the chief minister calls off this big dharna, turning this into the single biggest disaster of your government. A lot of right-minded people who supported the Aam Aadmi Party said, hey, have we voted in a bunch of anarchists? Do they even know what they're doing?
I think anarchy is a word we don't even begin to understand. Let's set aside.
No, but Kejriwal called himself an anarchist, so he surely understands the meaning and he accepts that he is an anarchist.
He said, if Mr. Shinde says it is anarchy, yes, I want to cause anarchy for Mr. Shinde. Is that anarchism? Hold your breath. I know you want to jump. You think Arvind Kejriwal is in a hurry. You may be in greater hurry. Hold your breath. This is not anarchism. It was a small and symbolic victory for the cause of Delhi's elected representatives being able to exercise power on law and order issue. We actually scored a small and symbolic victory. Please remind me of a government which did more in the first 1 month of its existence than Aam Aadmi Party government has done. Please allow me to correct
let's bring
myself.
that gentleman in. He's been a part of the Delhi government, understands the system really well. Sehgal, what's your question, sir? What's the point you wish to make?
Well, I'd like to respond to this, that has any government done more? I think no government has done more damage to governance than this government has done in
Why do you feel that way, sir?
I feel that way due to 3 reasons. The first thing you did, as soon as you took over, was to change all the key officers. And the second thing that you have done is that you have said we don't care for law, we don't care for order, we don't care for the constitution. When there was a section 144 in force, even an ordinary citizen is not supposed to break the law because he would be behind bars. It is too much to expect all the ministers of a duly elected government sitting in a dharna in violation of section 144 in the Supreme Court.
Okay, you've asked several questions. Let him respond to them one by one. Those are very important questions coming from a very experienced hand.
We had a party in governance for more than 10 years. They had key and trusted bureaucrats who were so closely identified with that regime that if we did not change them, Rahul Kanwal would be standing in the studio laughing at us and saying, you think you can govern with these bureaucrats who had served the government for 15 years? That would be a mockery of what governance is. Of course we will change bureaucrat. Of course the only way to change policies is to change key personnel there. I'm absolutely stunned and surprised to hear
But what about his other question about section 144 and your government violating the law of the land? If an ordinary citizen were to do it, people would say that he needs to be put behind bars. The chief minister himself breaking the law of the land, sometimes he forgets he's no longer a street agitator. He's the elected chief minister of our state.
And very often we forget, Rahul, sitting in these studios, that route to constitutional power in democracies flows from the street. And this dialectic from street to secretariat to street to secretariat has to happen all the time. It is not that 144 was in force in Delhi and the Chief Minister didn't know or violated it unintentionally. It is because he had announced his visit that 144 was imposed. Please also get someone from the police to sit here one day, ask him, when you knew the Chief Minister was going to meet the Home Minister of the country, why did you impose 144?
No,
when the Chief Minister
didn't give an appointment. The Chief Minister literally wanted to barge into his office where Shinde had clearly said he hasn't given Chief Minister an appointment.
You can impose articles somebody, and that's the whole point about the absurdity of Delhi's situation. Can this happen in Kolkata? Can it happen in Chennai? That the Chief Minister of the place wants to represent something about his people's interest, and somebody sitting in the police says, sorry, this is 144, we can't allow you to do that.
This is an afterthought. That is not the reason why Kejriwal went on a protest. He went on a protest demanding the suspension of 2 officials who had stood up to and told one of your ministers where to get off. He told Somnath Bharti, I cannot be ordered around by a minister, which is what Kejriwal didn't like. And instead of standing up for the police officer saying that you did the right thing by refusing to allow a politician to interfere, he stood up for his minister, sir.
This dharna was a much needed, much awaited, much prolonged and delayed protest about an absurdity which is written into the governance pattern of Delhi. And if tomorrow any other party comes to power, and the one way of removing these things that Aam Aadmi Party does, you know, all of us are so agitated, all of us feel so bad about it. Why don't I request all of us to do something very small? Congress and BJP have both promised in their manifesto that Delhi should become a state, therefore Delhi government should have all the powers over law and order. Why don't they in the next 7 days pass a legislation to that effect? My party has no MP. They have majority MPs. Why don't you request Congress and BJP to do that? We don't have to do any dharna after that. Please, all of us would be so happy, won't we?
You'd find some other reason to go on a dharna, but that's a different reason.
Yogendra sir, your law minister became a law unto himself. He sees 2 Ugandan women in a taxi. He decides to stop them. Those women are not sex workers. They had no drugs on them. That was made amply clear in the urine test. They were made to undergo urine on the road. They were called all sorts of racist names, including by your law minister. They were chased across.
I think there are lots of factual assumptions that you have made. Fortunately that night, there were 4 cameras in operation, not 1. Obviously, if the minister was saying something racist, 1 camera should have captured it.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, sir. The word ye log has been caught on YouTube. It is on YouTube, ye log, which clearly implies you were talking for the Africans.
I think a 10-second YouTube clipping doesn't answer the question. What you need to see is the entire thing. The sentence that he's speaking is, my people from my area come and tell me that. Unless you hear that first part of the sentence, people can come and tell me that this person is a scoundrel. I'm not saying this person is a scoundrel. I'm saying someone came and tells me that. On this question, I think what we need, let me come with basics. Racism in any form is not only politically and morally unacceptable, it is unconstitutional in India. 2, no minister can go and raid, okay? Ministerial prerogative should not be violated. And 3, anyone leading a mob to manhandle women or to mishandle them is completely unacceptable. So for all these 3, please produce evidence. I have requested friends in the media, there were 3 media channels that night. I have requested for the evidence. Please provide me one. You can provide it after the show as well.
But I have a structural question, sir. Law minister's job is to draft new laws. Our law minister thinks he's Batman. It's his job to enforce the law. He's out on the streets as a vigilante, trying to chase people down. Somnath Bharti seems to be completely confused about what law minister means. Does the man deserve the job that he has? Why don't you fire him?
Rahul, the word vigilante is used for those people who do not care about law, who say this is morally wrong and I will go and correct it.
That's what he did.
What the vigilantes normally don't do, Rahul, 1, they do not call police before they go to some place. I've never heard of a vigilante who first calls the police. In this case, they did. I've never heard of a vigilante who goes there and says, but there is no women police, we must have women police. They did that. I do not normally associate vigilantes with trying to correct illegal things. Vigilantism is about moral things. Why is she wearing this kind of skirt? I'll go and correct it. This is about trafficking and prostitution.
But sir, if I may correct you on a couple of facts, sir, maybe you've slipped on those facts. Number one, it is your party that then came out with a statement that those two girls were carrying condoms with them, which then implied that they were sex workers. That is not an implication. Number two, sir, the urine test shows they were not carrying drugs, and very importantly, those girls have given a recorded statement before a magistrate saying that your law minister has harassed them. More importantly, sir, if the police have to go on leave because there's a judicial probe, as you say, a neutral judicial probe on, why doesn't your law minister also go on probe?
Two things. Normally, the norm is that someone who is being inquired into leaves because that person should not be in a position to influence the inquiry. In the case of Delhi, and only in the case of Delhi throughout this country, the law minister is in no position whatsoever to, let alone influence the inquiry. In fact, everything...
So how will those cops influence the inquiry?
Because they sit in those offices where the papers come.
So you're saying they
sit
can
in
influence the judge? A lowly cop can influence the judge, but a sitting minister cannot influence the judge.
There is something called tempering of evidence. If I sit in that thana, if I am the SHO of a thana, from where the evidence will come, and that evidence is what everyone is going to look at. That is why that SHO is in a position to do something which the Delhi law minister is not in a
what
position.
About
the Bihar law minister
and
would
their
be, Rajasthan law minister
to
would.
Without fear complain against the law minister? If he's the law minister, he's got a position of power and responsibility. If he's not the law minister, those women will feel more empowered to come out and complain against him. I'm surprised, sir.
As was clear by what he said, they actually have complained. So clearly they did not feel...
No, but the point is, there is no parallel. If the officers have to go on leave, so must your law minister, sir.
This must be your belief, but what
now,
you
I'm asking
forget,
you a question.
What you forget is the crucial distinction between Delhi law minister and law minister in any other part of this country.
Let's ask our audience whether you are satisfied with that distinction which is being drawn by the Aam Aadmi Party.
Can I draw the distinction first?
Can we just one second? No,
can I draw the distinction first?
Yes, let's hear his distinction. Then I want to show of hands.
Law minister...
One second. No, one second.
Law ministers all over the country directly deal with police, are in a position to influence prosecution. They are actually the boss of the prosecution machinery, and police, in a sense, not reports, but police is directly under their influence. In Delhi, law minister has nothing to do with police. Police is not under his influence directly, indirectly, or any such way. Wasn't that very clear?
Okay.
But why take TV crews along with you and gather a crowd of supporters and then go and shame those Ugandan women publicly? Why not do it discreetly? In fact, it seems as if the party does each and everything in the public eye. Sitting on dharnas, taking the metro to your offices. It seems as if it wants public attention in whatever it does. Why is it so?
Two or three things. In that particular instance, your interpretation happens to be that Mr. Somnath Bhartiya decided to do something and then invited the crowd. It is exactly the other way around. It is a number of people from his constituency, you might call them a crowd, they reach his home at midnight and say, please get up and do something about our problem. It's not he who's inviting a crowd. As for public attention, I'm entirely with you. We could do with some less public attention. And believe me, as you walk with it...
But your supporters call the media crews.
Please allow, now that I'm asking the question. You know, the day before yesterday, 2 television journalists barged into my home, crossed my kitchen. My wife said, but where are you headed? Did someone invite you? No, we've come to interview Mr. Yadav. And I really agree with you. Half of the things that we do are not worth paying any attention to. And we have requested all these television channels, please not to pay that much attention. When Kejriwal goes for a metro ride, it's not he who is inviting. I mean, because I had the misfortune of passing through that station. And I was nearly killed on that station trying to go through the television crews. So yes, I agree, lots of things must happen outside the public gaze.
Professor Yogendra Yadav argues that there is no parallel between sending the officials, the police officials on leave, and not sending the law minister on leave. Do you support that contention? How many people support it? No, one second. How many people support it? You support it, one person in the audience. How many people think that contention is wrong? That what is being said is wrong? This is a show of hands, sir. This is a show of hands. You're seeing the Aam Aadmi, the real Aam Aadmi, speaking, and you've made an argument. You see what their response is.
I agree. We may have lost the perception battle. It is true. In fact, I've said not just here, I've said it several times. What happened in this entire episode was that on day one, we should have come out with facts. We allowed that perception to consolidate. And what happens in these situations is, once you have that perception which is solidified, that the person has done something wrong, and the party is trying to shield someone who's done something wrong, then no matter what technicality you come up with, it looks like a way of defending someone who's done something wrong. So in perception terms, we did lose something in this episode.
Just in perception terms, nothing else, just perception, that's all that you've lost.
Perception is very important in democracy. Perception is what makes things and undo things.
So there have been so many dissent voices inside your Aap party, and you must believe there are like Binni and these people like Madhu is a recent example. So I want to ask you, is the democracy in the Aap party is completely dead, or just 4 or 5 people like including you would take decisions on
Why throw people out who have a different opinion?
Sir, if we did not have democracy, you would not have heard these voices. Do you hear of a dissent within Chautala's party? You don't, because nothing is allowed. You heard about Madhu Bhaduriji's dissent because she was actually invited on the podium to express her dissent, because I happen to be the person who said, friends, one of our colleagues who happens to have a very different opinion on this question wants to express her opinion, let us listen to her. That is how you came to know what she said. So yes, dissent is there. Sir, yes, it should be welcomed. I'm glad this criticism is coming, and this is precisely how organizations become democratic, become more democratic. The day these questions stop coming, it means our organization is dead.
No, sir, which kind of democracy or equality of the party makes Meera Sanyal have a lateral entry and go contest for the South Bombay seat, while if a normal volunteer has to go through the uproot, then he has to stay in the party for 4 months, 1 year to work and then move the ranks of the party? Why does Meera Sanyal get a lateral entry to contest a certain MP seat?
I do not know what is a lateral entry, because in our party there is only one entry, which is everyone becomes a member, tries to do something for the party. Meera Sanyal ji has been there for almost a year now. She has been contributing. She contributed to our work in Delhi campaign. She's contributing now in Mumbai. I hear from newspapers that she is an applicant for one of the seats. It will be decided.
I want to ask, do you really support Khap Panchayats, or you are supporting them for the sake of votes? And secondly, Aam Aadmi Party is born and brought up just to heart Narendra Modi.
Now, you want to start it, but on Khap Panchayat, because Khap Panchayat question has been asked so many times, allow me to say that, and I know you would edit this show, Rahul, but please do not edit what I'm going to say now, because this is exactly what channels have done. This is precisely what has created misimpressions. I've been traveling, campaigning in Haryana. Reporters have asked me all questions from atomic energy to Khap Panchayat. In response to those questions, and not on my own, I have said the following. There are all kinds of caste community organizations in almost every caste and community that I know of in this country. Most of them do routine dispute resolution through consensus. That is fine and is welcome, because social disputes should normally not go into courts of law. However, if coercion comes in, if violation of law comes in, and if in the extreme cases even killings are defended, this is simply not acceptable, because murder is a murder is a murder. Those Khap Panchayats who have violated gender justice rights or caste equality rights should have no place in our democracy.
Okay.
I've said this again and again.
What about
that? I think is a sensible position. Yes.
So in some, any mistakes that you think the government has made, the new government in Delhi?
Any mistakes?
Any mistakes, yeah.
I do feel occasionally that we have tried to do too much. I agree with you. I think doing a little less, I think the anxiety, pressure of having to deliver things within 2 months and that too in so much of public glare and national public glare, has created an artificial pressure on the government. I also believe that in the case of Mr. Somnath Bhartiye, we could have anticipated perception, because in democracy, perception is far more important sometimes than reality. We should have done that. I think some of our persons have been rather indiscreet in the way they have spoken, Mr. Somnath Bhartiye being one of the examples. We have publicly condemned it, and we have personally apologized to the person concerned. Those mistakes have happened because we are still learning, you see, from a movement to an organization to a party to a ruling party. All this has happened. Normally it takes about 12 years. With us it's happened in 12 months. So a lot of learning for us here, a lot of experience for us to pick up, and yes, we have learned.
You're watching Right to be Heard Town Hall Season 2 Election Special. We've got Professor Yogendra Yadav with us. Lots of questions still to go. We've got Sai from Business Today with a question on economics.
Good morning, Mr. Yadav. Thousands of students are studying for their exams right now. And at this juncture, there is a threat that you are pulling the plug on power distribution companies, cancelling their licenses. Are you not creating a fear psychosis among Aam Aadmi?
Who's playing tricks? I thought you should have been asking this question to Reliance Company, that a company at this crucial time, a company simply says, I will buy electricity, but I will not pay up. I thought all of you were into saying there are no free lunches. So please tell Mr. Anil Ambani, there are no free lunches. What is he doing? Who is he playing with? I think your question is very good. It's just that you're asking the wrong person.
My second question, supplementary. You always try to project yourself as heroes. Are you not painting the Tatas, Ambanis, who have created thousands of jobs, spent millions of rupees in creating employment for many people? Are you not painting them as villains? Is this right?
I'm not. I'm just telling you in this instance. In this instance, Delhi has 3 companies. The Tata company has actually paid all its dues on time and is happily supplying to consumers. We salute them. The Ambani companies are not paying for the electricity that they have bought from somewhere else. We don't come into the picture. They buy electricity, do not pay, run into crisis, turn to us and say, please rescue. What kind of economics is this? I thought your economics would tell me that this is silly.
But
and to say this, that this is what Mr. Ambani's company is doing, is making a villain out of a great man. I mean, please, let's have common standards.
Do you think that the government regulator, which you're saying you might consider appointing, would do a better job than what these private companies are doing?
Sorry, there is already a regulator. We are not thinking of appointing a regulator.
You're saying there will be a government administrator. The threat is, and Kejriwal said this to us in an interview, if the Ambanis leave, if the Tatas leave, so be it, the government will take over. Do you think the government will do a better job?
If someone says, I will buy electricity, not pay them, and as a result hold the whole of Delhi hostage, what is the job of the government? To say, all right, if this is the threat, we are willing to take it up. We are not saying this is a better arrangement. We did not say this is what we want. But if someone blackmails you, what would you do, Rahul? I would normally say, all right, I'll take you on.
So moving on to the national level, Professor Yadav, you've opposed FDI in retail, and that is perhaps the one sector that is crying for big ticket investments, which Indians don't necessarily have that kind of capital. Explain the rationale to us. You talk about creating jobs, just as it flies against that logic.
We took this decision as of now only for Delhi, because looking at Delhi's situation, looking at the evidence that was presented to us, and this was part of our manifesto, we realized that the real damages to small-time retailers is heavier than the imagined or presumed benefits which might come to farmers or consumers. Delhi has no farmers to speak of. There are very few. So that is how we weighed it. How it would weigh out in other parts of the country is something about which we still have an open mind. We have not declared we oppose FDI. We have not declared we oppose FDI in retail all over the country. We have taken one specific policy measure. Unfortunately, Too much is being read into one or two specific decisions that we have taken in Delhi's context.
But it also kind of is in line with what Mr. Kejriwal's thinking in his book has been, in the Swaraj book, where he talks about self-governance, not so much foreign kind of dependency, etc. So there is a genuine concern out there that...
I think there's sheer misunderstanding about these things. The trouble is that the ideas which appear so unfamiliar to us, we end up clubbing too many things under that. There is and in India, for us to confuse these ideas is rather strange, because there's a very long legacy. There's a Gandhian legacy behind these things. The idea of self-governance, of Swaraj, and that to have something to do with FDI in retail, these are two somewhat separate things. We have repeatedly said, all kinds of things have been read into it, because the trouble is that we must look at the world through spectacles of left, right, pro-liberalizers, pro-market, anti-market. We have simply said we are agnostic. Our ultimate goal is absolutely clear. The Aam Aadmi, the last person in the country, is our goal.
You say that subsidy is not going to be the central of your the center for your policies, but on the one hand, on the other, you started off with free water, etc., which was correcting some sort of a systemic failure. So I'm very confused. If subsidy is not going to be central of what you're going to say, but on the other you're going to come out with free water and cheap, how are you going to do it? I'm very unclear about what this government is articulating on those fronts. It's very confused.
I can understand why we may not look clear. One of the reasons is that we have not yet fully spelled out our economic policy. But surely, giving subsidy, not giving subsidies, these cannot be ideologies. Every government all over the world subsidizes something or the other. The decision is which things do you want to subsidize and what do you not wish to subsidize. As of now, you have looked at one or two things. About water, I really would plead with everyone, supplying people drinking water must be priority, and all that we have done is actually cross-subsidization. And a subsidy did exist in Delhi on water. All we have done is to raise its bar and to introduce a principle of cross-subsidy, which is to say if you use more than 700, then you would pay at a higher rate, which would subsidize for others. What's wrong with that? On electricity, the subsidy that we have announced is only an interim relief, pending the inquiry of CAG audit. Let the audit come.
Okay, go on.
Yeah, so I want to go back to the question on FDI and also the point you made about not starting with ideology but evidence. So what really is the evidence that you say exists against FDI in retail? And if there is indeed, then why is it just against foreign retail? Why not Indian organized retail, right? What's the logic of allowing any organized retail if the evidence is employment reduces?
Let me say two things here. One is that according to central government, it is in FDI in retail that the state governments have a certain legal power. As you know, after a huge national debate, it was decided that FDI retail is a question on which each state government will be given discretion. We had discretion under this. We have taken a decision.
On what evidence have you based this decision?
Evidence presented by a large number of retailers, and the danger posed to retail business that mom and pop shops all over the world, which have all over the world slightly sort of disappeared. In India, in Delhi's context, we thought that disappearing of that retail, would it mean benefits being passed on to consumers, or would it mean greater profit for those big firms which would come in? We have to balance the two. We looked at that, and I'm again saying this is not an in-principle decision as yet about FDI in retail or about retail sector as a whole. This is one specific measure for Delhi, and we still are in the process of developing our economic policy. As I said to her, we have not yet developed our full economic policy. If you say, are we learning? Yes, we are learning.
Before I move on from economic policies, I want to do 2 rounds of shows of hands, okay? Firstly, would you be comfortable with the idea of government getting back into electricity distribution in India?
Rahul, this is an unfair question. No? This is not what we have said.
If it were to happen, can we ask it, or you think it's unfair?
Rahul, can I pose a fair question?
Yes, you ask a fair question.
This is such a distorted way of asking.
You tell me what question to ask.
The question is, if two of the companies are not doing what is written in their contract, should they not be threatened with termination of their contract?
Okay, but as
And
an
a new
extension
contract
of that,
will be brought if
are
necessary.
people okay with government getting back into power distribution?
This
It's an
is
extension.
not what we have said at all. I mean, you can ask other kinds of questions if you want. You
Kejriwal
can
said that?
Kejriwal said that.
He said it in the interview. He said, I did an interview with
Allow
him.
me
I don't
to
know.
say exactly, you can also say whether Kejriwal's father should distribute Bijli for the Delhi or not.
No, but he told us in an interview.
But what Aam Aadmi Party has said is this, that if these regulators blackmail and threaten us, we would take it back and then take the decision. The decision could be many things. The decision could be we would run it ourselves. The decision could be we could outsource it to someone else. The decision could be we would bring a new contractor.
Okay, so let me ask
All
both
these
questions.
options are open.
Let me ask both questions. First, let's take the question Professor Yogendra Yadav suggests. If the private companies do not live up to their contract and, as Professor Yadav says, blackmail and threaten the government, is it okay for Kejriwal's government to cancel that contract? Those who say yes, put up your hands. So you believe that if the contract is not being honored by the private companies, it should be terminated. That's your response? Okay. Let me now, and I think that's a majority of people who actually said that. The second question, would you be comfortable if Kejriwal and the Delhi government gets into the business of distributing electricity themselves instead of relying on private operators? How many, just show of hands for those who say no.
No, we will not.
So all of them say no. So I think you said that there are other alternatives as well. You'll have to explore those. Sure. This is a Mohalla Sabha. This is almost like a Mohalla Sabha which you've been talking about. So let's take some more questions.
I'm representing here not a single question but the question of 75,000 parents. So I want to ask you how you make it sure that the lottery of 4 lakh people, like this year, all the people will be selected to lottery only. The applications will be transparent. You know, this is why you can say this is not the question of the past or a remedial method you can say. The second is that so many people coming in fancy, you're having fancy mobiles and cars and getting the AWS certificate made. And the government is aware, it's coming in the newspaper also. These two factors, like I would like to ask you, like how to make it transparent. And like there's 75,000 parents who are having sleepless nights because this time the admission is not going through point system.
Okay, you've asked that question. Sir.
First, I would like you to remember that the EWS decision is a national policy which comes from right to education. It's not a policy of any state of India. All we are doing is to say we will implement this in a way which is transparent. Why do we have observers for that? Because of a simple fear, a simple apprehension which has been expressed by thousands of parents that when we go to ask for EWS admission, we get a simple no. Precisely the things that you mentioned, people with cars and fancy mobile phones are able to apply and we genuine people can't apply. So that is precisely why we have an observer. Yes, the system should be made more transparent. As you would agree, we came in when half the guidelines were already announced. We've just fine-tuned it. We've just stepped into that season. But greater transparency is the only way of going about it.
That young gentleman over there, the back.
Sir, don't you think that your government should take the priorities right? At one side, you are developing Delhi. I really appreciate that. But at other side, the level of competition is going down among the students. Because it's your decision which you have taken regarding reservation 90% in Delhi University. At one side, you are giving the chance to Delhi people, but other side, the level of competition is going down day by day. You are neglecting the students from other states.
I think there's a complete misunderstanding about what that decision is. There are 70 colleges in Delhi University, and with Delhi University is a central university which admits students from all over the country, and 42 colleges out of those 70 are under central grant and are administered that way. About 20 years ago, Delhi government felt that Delhi students are not getting admission, as a result of which they actually opened new colleges which were given 100% support from Delhi's own budget. But for various reasons which have to do with strange bureaucracy of Delhi, it was never written into the law, into the admission rules, that we are paying 100% for these colleges and our students will get admission here. All that we have done is to rectify in the case of those 12 colleges for which 100% money goes from Delhi budget, not from MHRD, not from UGC. If Delhi government gives that money, about 125 crore I believe, for its own colleges, precisely to ensure that Delhi students get more admissions, Is it not fair to say that they are the ones who should get it? Number two, please remember that in Delhi, and this is meant not for people who have domicile in Delhi, it is meant for anyone who has done +2 from Delhi. So there is no parochialism here about Delhi versus this versus that. And why should we need to do that? The reason is that more than 2 lakh students pass +2 in Delhi every year. And all the university seats in Delhi put together are less than 75,000. There is a gap. Someone has to fill it. So, of course, we need to create new colleges. But this tiny step, I thought some people would applaud it and say, okay, you're at least getting from your money what you were meant to spend on. Or alternatively, we can request the MHRD and UGC to please start paying this 125 crore rupees if they are so concerned.
Okay, so
we would then open a few more colleges, because someone has to make provision for these 1 lakh students who are passing, who do not have college seats.
Okay, let's do a show of hands. This is populism and I'm sure people will support Professor Yadav, but I still want to see. Let's see a show of hands. I just want to see whether you agree with what the Aam Aadmi Party government has done. For Delhiites, it's a good thing, but we're also the national capital. Do you think it's okay to debar students from outside coming into a certain number of colleges in Delhi? Yes. No. How many say yes first?
I say yes.
1, 2, 3, 4. How many say no? It's the idea of Delhi being the national capital is bigger than the populist measure which possibly your government has taken. That's just the response from this Mohalla Sabha.
You happen to be the anchor.
Yes.
You happen to have the right to present the question. I'm sure I could present the question differently. The different way of presenting would be, should the Delhi government be worried about these 1 lakh students who do not have any seats in colleges in Delhi, in the city in which they happen to live? Should the Delhi government make additional provisions for them or not?
That young lady over there, Professor Yadav has drafted questionnaires. You can never get into an argument on questionnaires with him.
Sir, actually, why not selecting students on the basis of merit? Why we need reservation? Even why don't we keep every college open for students on the basis of their merit? I mean, reserving one college also on the basis of, if they're Delhiite or not. I am not a Delhiite. I am studying in DU and I feel very proud that we are selected on the basis of our merit, not because we belong to a particular state.
And that too, when we are coming from our hometowns to study into Delhi University, the best university we have in our country, why don't the people of Delhi who don't get that much percentage go to other states and get the admission? Yes, that is not key. They have to be in Delhi only. They have to be in the hometowns. We have left our hometowns.
So we have scored marks.
I'm one of those students who had the privilege of coming from a small town in Rajasthan to study in Delhi. I would certainly not wish to deny that privilege to anyone. The misimpression communicated by the media, which is how my friend started, 90% of DU seats are being reserved for people in Delhi. This is complete nonsense. There is no such decision. It applies to special colleges which were created specifically with the sole purpose of creating more spaces for Delhi students. This is what a government will have to do.
How is your party then different from the Shiv Sena and the MNS, except that they do it violently? You're doing it in another way. Why don't you create more colleges? Why isn't it about creating more power, as he says, getting more private companies, increasing competition, creating more colleges, creating more avenues? Why is it about restricting, sir?
It is a colorful comparison. Let me allow me to tell you. Do you know that for the last 15 years, there have been places in Delhi where 85% seats are reserved for Delhi students? Did you not know this? You did not know this. There are 3 universities in Delhi. There is Ambedkar University, there is IP University, there is a technical university, all established under the previous regime by Congress, all 3 of them fully funded by Delhi government. All 3 of them have always had this rule of 85%. So, if that was not Shiv Sena, how does suddenly our doing this becomes a Shiv Sena? The logic is simply this: wherever Delhi government is putting all the money to run an institution, it is Delhi government's job to ensure that the students who do +2,
he's made that point,
whichever part of the country they come from, but if they have done schooling in Delhi, it is our job to get those students a seat in college.
Okay, he's made that point. You have a difference of opinion. Let's respect that. So we've had a very candid town hall interaction with Yogendra Yadav, almost like a Mohalla Sabha in the way that they envisaged it.
I'm glad you endorsed Mohalla Sabhas.
That's a whole different debate. We'll have to have you back on the town
No, it's not
hall.
debate because you've actually endorsed it now in your program.
No, I'm saying this is the Mohalla Sabha of the sort that you envisioned. Why the Jan Sunwai was ended after the first episode is another matter. We'll have you back for another edition of the Right to Be Heard Town Hall for taking all these questions head on and for answering them in the manner that you did. Professor Yogendra Yadav, thank you so much for joining us on the Right to Be Heard Town Hall. Thank you very much. Round of applause for him. Thank you.